Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Man has a certain essence to him, and that essence was put into him by Allah when he created man. And man has capabilities that are beyond his understanding until he actually enters into them. Man has the ability to know who he is, to know who God is, and to understand the creation. But most man hasn't gotten to that place. Most man is caught in the world of illusion. They have never stepped outside of it, and it seems real to them. So they are within the intellect, within sense and awareness, within the tools that man was given in order to cope with this elemental world. The majesty of man, though, the greatness of man, cannot be measured. Only Allah can measure man. We can measure the land, we can measure the oceans, we can measure the heights of things, we can measure the widths of things, but we can't measure the capacity of man. Man's capacity is much greater than what man can imagine. And that's because man imagines with his intellect. And his intellect is limited to the elemental world. But man's capacity goes beyond the elemental world. The only one who can truly measure the capacity of man is God, because he knows man's every breath. He knows man's every need. He knows man's every inclination and intention. He knows man's every thought. And he gives to man that which he needs. As to each one, he gives to each one as to their inclination. He gives to each one as to what they need. Science can't understand these things. Books can't understand these things. Religions can't understand these things. But God can understand these things. Allah understands these things. And that's why we call him our God, our Savior, our Father, the one who protects, sustains, and nourishes us. It is our implicit duty to find God. It is our duty to come to know who we are. But how do we find him? How do we find who we are? These things are difficult. And for most people, the opportunity never arises because they're looking in all the wrong places to find the answers. The answers aren't going to be found in religion. What you're going to find in religion is the ability to repeat certain rituals, to repeat certain prayers, but it's not going to find you God. It's not going to tell you who you are. The only way to be able to accomplish that is to find a wise man, a man who has experienced what that is. man who knows what that is and can pass it on to you. A man whose point of view is different than the point of view of people trapped in illusion, whose point of view is different from those trapped in the elemental world. You know, if you try to describe dance with architecture, it's difficult because architecture is static. Dance has a movement to it. To try to describe light through an elemental process is difficult because light is not elemental and light doesn't have the capacities of the elements. It doesn't have the makeup of the elements. It's different than that. And so man is immediately at a disadvantage because his mind, which is the main tool that he has to deal with the world, appears to him to be the only tool that he has in order to decipher and understand things. But there's more to it than that. Man comes into the world, and he comes into the world with certain inherited qualities that are karma, Maya, and arrogance. Maya means illusion. Karma is the inherited qualities that we get from our parents. The entire ancestral cultural phenomenon that we begin to think is who we are. Maya is the attachment to gold, earth, and women. And arrogance, quite simply, is Satan, and it's attached to hell. To understand Satan is to understand arrogance. To understand Satan's story is to understand arrogance. And we have to understand it in a way that we can apply that story to ourselves when arrogance comes. And most people can't do that, and they won't do that. Most people see their own arrogance as simply knowing more than somebody else, as simply being right when others are wrong, as simply being more astute. But in truth, it has to do with the lack of ability to be humble, with the lack of ability to become small, with the lack of ability to be gracious. Arrogance is an overwhelming quality that takes you out of the realm of what's appropriate into the realm of satanic action. And it can lead you to almost actions that are beyond what you should be involved in. Arrogance will allow you to do things that are abhorrent to man. Arrogance will bring people into war. Arrogance will lead to theft. Arrogance will lead to lying. Arrogance will lead to murder, because arrogance excuses everything that you do. Arrogance says it's okay for you to step out of the realms of acceptable behavior, to step out of the realms of what's appropriate behavior. And what happens is, when arrogance enters religion, then the religion creates behavior that's unacceptable as acceptable. All of a sudden, religions say it's okay to kill. It's okay to murder. It's okay to do these kinds of things. It's okay to ostracize certain people. It's okay to create caste systems. It's okay to have religious differences. It's okay to do these things because you are somehow better than everyone else. That's what arrogance does. And that was Satan's initial response to the creation of man. He was better than man. So why did God give man capacity that Satan didn't have? Satan couldn't understand it because Satan was so entrapped in seeing himself and understanding his own narcissistic belief as to who he was. Arrogance is connected to hell. And when we begin to understand that arrogance is connected to hell, that's when we begin to understand the danger of arrogance and what arrogance can do to us and where arrogance can take us. This all works because man is trapped in a ball of elements. Our body is a ball of elements. We were born with a ball of elements. Now, all of the elements have certain inherent arrogance in them. The earth has arrogance. Air has arrogance. Water has arrogance. Fire has arrogance. Ether has arrogance. Look at the arrogance of fire. Fire destroys everything that it touches. It has no compassion for anything. It just burns. And in order for it to sustain itself, it needs to continue to consume. It needs to continue to burn. Air has arrogance. Look at tornadoes. Look at cyclones. Look at hurricanes. Water has arrogance. Look at floods. Look at the overwhelming capacity of water to engulf things and do away with them. Earth has arrogance, and the world has seen examples of it recently with earthquakes and the destruction that these earthquakes have caused. So we, all of us, are born with all of these arrogant elements within us, and we have to begin to understand how to overcome this arrogance. Arrogance is tied to illusion, and it's tied to desire. Now, if we can begin to understand the nature of illusion and the nature of what illusion does to us, and we can begin to understand desire and the nature of what desire does to us, then we can begin to unravel the difficulties that we have. There was a sheikh who was sitting with his dervishes, and he pulled out a silk handkerchief, and he said to the assembled group, "What is this?" And they all said, "It's a silk handkerchief." And then he took it and he tied knots into it. And he ended up making it with 5 knots. And then he said, "What is it now?" And they said, "Well, it's a silk handkerchief with knots in it." And then he said, "Well, how do you take it apart?" And one of them said, "Well, you pull on it." And he said, "No, that's not how it works. It would just make it tighter and more difficult to pull it apart." And then another one said, "Well, you have to look at it very, very closely. And you have to look at each knot very closely and see how it was put together. And then you can learn how to take it apart." And he said, "That's right. Now, each of you, go into your separate rooms and meditate on your knots and figure out how to take those knots apart. And this is some of the work that we have to do. We are full of inaccurate views of things. We are full of difficulties that we have in our life. We are full of attachments that we have in our life. But do we actually understand these attachments? Do we actually understand how they work on us, what they do to us? And do we understand how to release ourselves from those attachments? In the world, there are many different kinds of lives. There's earth lives, water lives, air lives, fire lives, ether lives. All of these are elemental lives. In none of these elemental lives can we find the truth. In none of these elemental lives can we find our way towards God. But then there's the human life. And we have to separate the human life from the elemental lives. So we live our life within the elements, but we are not of the elements. We are not an elemental body that happens to have a soul. We are a soul that happens to be encased in an elemental body. So we have to come to know that soul. In order to know ourselves, we have to come to know the soul. And in order to do that, we have to somehow separate ourselves from our elemental attachments and our elemental arrogance. All of the various elements have magnetic powers within them that draw the elements towards them. So in the way that a magnet will draw steel, the earth in us will be attracted to earth. The air in us will be attracted to air. The fire in us will be attracted to fire. So we are attracted to the elemental, and many people spend their lives within the elements. There's so many things that you can do within the elements. You can create within the elements. And in this creation, you actually see yourself as a creator. My wife used to paint, and she had a show and she was very successful. And I said to her, maybe you could make a business out of this. And she said to me, I've decided to stop painting. And I said, why? She said, only God can make the color of a strawberry. And that was the point. She decided she wasn't going to compete with God, and she wasn't going to be a creator. There was only one creator, and she didn't want to be involved in that process. She wanted to be able to steer away from that process. We have to understand what it is to steer away from that process. When we get to the point where we understand the reality of God and the reality of our place with God and our connection to that, then we can cross over into truth. And that is the station that's called Sufiyat. And in that station of Sufiyat, there's no seeing, there's no hearing, there's no mouthing, there's no attachments, there's just submission. And when we can understand that state of submission, and that submission is the ultimate state that we can come to, then we can begin to understand reality. Man has to come to know man, and man has to come to know God. But man cannot know God. Only God can know God. So man has to enter into the state of man, God, God, man. And how does man enter into that state of man, God, God, man? And that's by giving up everything that's other than God. That's by giving up all of the qualities that are inherently opposed to what God is. It's giving up all of the qualities that aren't divine, through giving up all of the qualities that don't have divinity within them. So we need to understand the gracious qualities of God, and we have to study them. We have to understand what giving means. We have to understand what unconditional means. And unconditional goes with a lot of words that follow it. Unconditional love, unconditional mercy, unconditional compassion, unconditional patience. All of these divine qualities don't come with conditions. They are. And they are in effulgence. They are in multitude. They are in grace. They are without limit. They are incapable of being diminished. We need to understand the qualities that are like that. And we have to understand our connection to those qualities. So if we decide to love, if we don't love unconditionally, if we have selfish love, it's not love. It is a product of the material world that deals with scarcity. With Allah, there is no scarcity. So I love something because of what it does for me. That's not love. That's selfishness. That's need. That is other than unconditional. If I'm kind to people because I know what they'll do to me if I'm kind to them, or I know what they won't do to me if I'm kind to them, there's always a purpose. There's always a motive. God created man out of love. It wasn't out of a motive. It was out of the sincere giving towards an entity to create something that would exist not because of a motive, but because of love. It's difficult to comprehend that when we live a life of motives, when we live a life of collecting, when we live a life of need. It's only when we enter into a life that has no need, but is satisfied and content with whatever Allah supplies, that we take that step into reality, that we take that step into hakikat, that we take that step into that which is real. But as long as we hold back, as long as we hold back because of self-motive, as long as we hold back to protect ourselves, as long as we hold back to separate ourselves, as long as we hold back to maintain our identity and to maintain our self, there isn't true surrender. There isn't true submission. There isn't true merging. There isn't true disappearance. And what has to occur is disappearance has to occur. All of the things that are tied to the elements have to disappear, because God's kingdom is not an elemental kingdom. God's kingdom is a kingdom of light. And in that kingdom of light, all of the 124,000 prophets exist, but they don't exist as form. They exist as an effulgence. They exist as a light. The angels don't exist as form. They exist as an effulgence. The ketubs don't exist as form. They exist as an effulgence. In God's mercy, he sends ketubs into the world manifest so that we can get an example of what the light world is like and what the attitude within the light world is like. And if you live with such a man, you will see his actions and his nature. And his nature is that he doesn't have anything. And his nature is that he doesn't want anything. And his nature is that he doesn't need anything, because everything is supplied by him or supplied to him automatically. In the world of light, everything is abundant, and everyone has everything that they need. Scarcity is not what goes on in the world of light. It goes on in the world of elements, in the world of material, in the world of physical attributes. But there is a world beyond physical attributes. If you can understand that this world, compared to the world of light, is a world of shadows, then you can begin to understand truth, and you can begin to understand reality. If we see everything as a shadow, if we see everything as a hologram of reality as opposed to reality, then we can begin to understand the elemental world. Light is reality. Light is who we are. Light is truth. But to make that jump from this ball of elements to the world of light takes a transformation and takes an enormous change in attitude. All of the things that we consider important within this world have to be given up. All of the things that we hold on to in this world as maintaining and sustaining our existence don't really maintain and sustain our existence. The only thing that maintains and sustains our existence is God. Yet, we think food sustains our existence. We think houses maintain our existence. We think power sustains our existence. We think arrogance keeps us going. All of these things are lies. But can we clear ourselves of these lies? This is the nature of illusion. And illusion is relentless. Illusion comes with religion. Illusion comes with family. Illusion comes with children. Illusion comes with husbands. Illusion comes with wives. Illusion comes with wealth. Illusion comes with fame. And all of these things attack man. And they attack man from every direction. And if you wipe one out, another one comes. If you wipe away wealth, land comes. If you wipe away land, fame comes. If you wipe away fame, power comes. And they all sneak up on you. You don't even notice them until they've gotten hold of you, and all of a sudden you're waving them as if they were your sword that protected you. And this is not true. These are all shadows, and all of these shadows disappear. in the same way that we disappear. Yet man is incapable of understanding his own disappearance. Man is incapable of seeing the world without himself. Man is incapable of understanding that this shell falls away and there's more to it than what appears to the eye. We can't see the soul with these eyes. We can't hear the soul with these ears. We have to develop a whole new way of seeing and hearing and understanding. And this doesn't come from the intellect. This comes through divine intervention and connection. This comes through wisdom. And wisdom isn't found in religion. Wisdom isn't found in books. Wisdom isn't found in science. Wisdom is found through nearness to wisdom. So when wisdom comes along your path and wisdom becomes transferred to you as a resonance, wisdom becomes transferred to you directly by wisdom, then you can obtain wisdom. And what wisdom does is it alters your point of view. It alters the way you understand and the way you see things. We have one job in this world, and that job is to get rid of everything we've accumulated in our lifetime. Everything that we've taken on in our lifetime. God has three jobs. He creates, sustains, and nourishes. We only have one job: to get rid of everything that we've accumulated in this material world. We don't need to create. We don't need to protect. All of these things are going on without our involvement. God is taking care of all of that. What we need to do is just let go of everything that we've collected. We're all hoarders. And what is it that we hoard? We hoard these trinkets of the world, thinking that these trinkets are going to somehow aid us through all eternity. These trinkets are going to disappear just as we are going to disappear. And if we're holding on to trinkets, we're going to be left holding nothing. And we need to be holding something to move into the next world. And what is it that we can actually hold on to? The only things that we can hold on to have no form. The only things that we can hold on to are not material in nature. They are qualities. We can hold on to love. We can hold on to mercy. We can hold on to compassion. We can hold on to justice. We can hold on to submission and equality. We can hold on to the lack of differences. We can hold on to kindness, but we can't hold on to gold. We can't hold on to real estate. We can't hold on to men or women. We can't hold on to houses or cars. We can't hold on to power. Our biggest attribute is the ability to submit to God. Our biggest attribute is the ability to stop resisting the submission to God. So we need to stop resisting, and we need to begin submitting. We need to understand the truth of who our Lord is, and we have to be ready to join that truth. We have to stop making distinctions. We have to stop making separations. We have to begin to understand that there is a great unity in existence, and everything is one. And as long as we hold ourselves separate from that one, we hold ourselves separate from the truth. And this is hard to do. And that's why you need the constant interaction with someone who reminds you of this and someone who shows you this, someone who explains reality, someone who explains haq, someone who explains submission, and someone who can explain the glory of that treasure. We treasure gold, but truthfully, Allah has created us in his image, and he has no form. But what does he have? He has qualities, and he has seen fit to share with us the qualities that make him up. So he has seen fit to share with us compassion. He has seen fit to share with us mercy. And when we understand that the great treasures in our life are his mercy, his compassion, his love, and if we can incorporate these into ourselves and feel the resonance of these qualities, these treasures are greater than anything that's found in this material world. So we have to start looking with that point of view. The treasures that we are looking for are not found here, even though they are adjacent to here. We can't see compassion, but it's always here. We can't see mercy, but it's always here. Mercy and compassion are what sustain this world. And if mercy and compassion were to disappear, this world would disappear. Yet we don't acknowledge mercy and compassion. We hold on to arrogance as if that's what's going to hold us in place and what's going to protect us. Satan has convinced us to become like him, as opposed to becoming like God. And this is the work that Satan does. He tells us, be like me, just as the Sheikh tells us, be like me. And we have to make this choice. Do we want to be like Satan, or do we want to be like the Sheikh? Do we want to enter into truth, or do we want to maintain life in arrogance? This is at the crux of our decision making. You see, if we maintain the life of arrogance, that means we want to maintain everything we've accumulated. To maintain the life that's godly, we have to give up everything we've accumulated. So either take on or let go. Either take on or let go. Only he, not me. Only he, not me. We need to let go of everything, and then our burdens disappear, our difficulties disappear, our fears disappear. Everything that interacts with this world disappears, and all of the pain of this world disappears. So we need to focus on what is true, and we need to know that the truth is our lifeline to reality. The truth is what we need to hold on to, and everything else we need to let go of. So we have to ask Allah, show us the truth. Allow us to understand the truth. Allow us to know reality, and make it possible for us to give up everything else and to follow only your path, the straight path to reality. Ameen. Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.